So have you ever heard someone saying, I'm a certified person, I'm a certified project manager, so there's nothing else that you can tell me? Have you ever heard someone saying, I've done my education and I know better than you, so you need to do what I'm following, you need to do what I'm saying? Have you ever heard someone saying, this is what the PM book says, so let's follow it and make sure it's done? Have you ever heard someone saying, I need this to be done according to these principles. If it's not done, then you've not done your job. Probably you'll be fired. So these are some of the traps that you normally find with project managers. And these are some of the traps that you should always avoid as a project manager. So in this video, I'm going to cover these that you should always try to avoid if you're a project manager. So let's move on. I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe button, and the notification button so that you're the first person to be notified each time a new video is uploaded on this channel. It will also help the channel to grow. It will also help the channel to produce more videos like this one. So, project management is actually a journey. You might be asking me, Oscar, why are you saying it's a journey? Project management involves you from starting to think about project manager or project management to going to mastering project management or being a project manager. So you might be asking, Oscar, what are these stages in this journey? I can quickly mention them to you. One of them is you need to do your research first to check if you really want to be a project manager. You educate yourself also so that you can use the domain language in project management. You can also certify or get certification for yourself to prove that you have mastered project management. You can also practice. That is to apply your theory into practice, and then you need to master. So there are so many project managers who have gone through this journey of being a project manager, but at the end of the day, they become trapped. So you might be asking, Oscar, what do you mean by trapped? You see, like any other discipline, project management does not have an end. Why am I saying that? You might find that you are now getting new technologies. So as a project manager, you don't need to learn. You cannot say, I was doing this in the 90s, 80s, or around the 2020s, and therefore nothing else is going to change. Project tools, they're going to change. Even methodologies, some of them, they're going to improve. Okay, they're not going to change as such, but they're going to improve. And also people management theories, experience, and other things, they're going to change. So there are certain traps which we can classify that project managers can fall into. So the first one is going to be overprocessing. Okay. Then the second one is credential gatekeeping. We'll discuss more about that. Then the third one is where theory meets reality or practice. Okay. And then the last one is reaching comfort level zone or comfort zone ceiling. So in project management, one of the first traps to avoid is overprocessing. I can explain more on this. I've seen so many project managers, especially the ones who have just certified, and then they're lucky to be deployed into managing a project. The first problem you face is overprocessing, because there's too much theory in their head. They've heard about this template. They also have heard about this process. They've heard about this document that must be done. So they are trapped in overprocessing. Even where you are not supposed to be applying a specific logic, they will try to push it so that it's done. Where you are not supposed to apply a specific process, because they've learned about it, they'll always try to push to include that process. So overprocessing is one of the challenges or one of the traps that you should always avoid as a project manager. And you should always make sure that you come out of that trap. Otherwise, it will damage your reputation. It will also damage the product. So in this section of the video, I want us to go through the signs that shows that probably you might be overprocessing in a project environment. Some of these signs, you might even concur with me, I've already experienced them. Some of them, they might appear very new. So we're going to look at the signs that you're overprocessing, and then we're also going to look at how do you fix that. So these are the specific signs that might show that you're overprocessing in your project. The first one you see is someone having a plan which is longer than the project. Honestly, that's not how things should work. A plan should be linked to the project. And this day and age where we now have artificial intelligence or AI, you find that most people, they don't take time to analyze the output of the AI. So what they normally do is just give a prompt to the artificial intelligence tool, they get a response, then they use it. There are so many other AIs these days which can even create for you a project plan. So someone will just give a prompt, they get a plan, they start sharing with the team or stakeholders without looking at exactly what is required in the project. That is why it's normally advisable that you tailor the project environment for a specific process. You don't need to take one by one. There are certain documents which might work in construction project, they might not work in software project. There are certain documents that might work when you are renovating a building. There are certain documents which are not applicable. It's not just document, even document templates and also processes which are also not applicable when you're doing research. So it is always advisable that you tailor the environment of the project, you tailor your knowledge, you tailor your documentation, your processes to the requirement of the project. So how do we fix that? Not every project requires a 50-page plan or 50-page project charter. No. There are certain projects you can quickly achieve even with a 2-page document, or even 1-page document or 1-page plan. So you need to tailor your experience, your knowledge, your documentation, your templates to the project environment. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for you to be successful in that project. So the second item or the second sign that probably you might be over processing, you find most of your team members, they are spending more time either reporting or completing some documents instead of doing the work. Projects can be delivered through execution of project work, execution of project plans. Whether it's procurement plan, whether it's scope management plan, whether it's cost management plan, all these plans, they can only be achieved by execution. So you should always make sure that most of your team members, especially the ones who are going to execute the work packages, they are actually spending more time doing the work than doing project documentation or even doing reporting. So this is also another sign that probably you are over processing in your project. People are spending more time on documents. People are spending more time on reporting. People are spending even more time in meetings instead of spending more time doing the work. So how do we fix this? Normally for small projects, reporting can be even verbal, okay? These days there are so many platforms you can even use for reporting. For example, you can use your WhatsApp, or you can even use Teams meeting, Zoom, and so on and so forth. So this is how you need to avoid that. Try to make sure that where it's necessary, okay, you don't need to overburden the team with a lot of documentation, with a lot of reporting. That is very, very important to consider. Then the next one is, this one I've seen in some of my project experience, where the team or any decision that is to be made, you find that it will require a change request. Even a minor decision, it will require a change request. I can tell you that's one of the signs that you are actually over processing. Say for example, I can give you a burning example. Maybe one of the requirements was for the teller to be able to issue amounts up to, say, $100. Just an example. And then the teller maybe requests that instead of 100, can we put it to 90? It's just a small change. It could be parameterized so that the teller can even change on their own when the developers are not there. You find some project manager, because probably it's a fixed price project, they are not flexible. Anything that is to come, it has to come through a change request. So you might be asking, what is a fixed price? A fixed price is just a type of contract that you can have in a project. In a project, actually, you have 3 types of contracts: fixed price, cost reimbursement, and also time and material. If you want to understand more about the different types of project contracts, I've created a video on project contracts or agreements. I'll also leave a link in the description below. You can also check it on my channel. So, some of these signs is every small or minor change. I'm not talking about gold plating. I'm not talking about scope creep. There are some minor changes which you are, as a project manager, you make a decision that since it's not going to affect the timelines, it's not going to affect probably the cost, then it can be done. I'm not saying you should accept scope creep, but there are some minor changes, especially if you are working on a software development project. There are some minor changes which do not have a serious impact on the deliverable, and they do not warrant a full-fledged change request. Although change request is a mandatory item to do, especially when you're doing predictive project management. So that is one. So that is the other one. The next one now is you have layered approval process. What do I mean by this? Maybe something that would require even just a team manager or even a project manager or even a program manager to approve. You might end up with 6 or 4 layers. You want team member, team manager, project manager, program manager, portfolio manager, sponsor, everyone. So it could be one of the signs that shows that you're actually over-processing. You cannot have such a high number of approvals for small changes. So it's actually very important that for some of these projects, you tailor or you customize the way you do some of these approvals. Maybe from your previous project, you actually had these 5, but it might not apply to the current project. So it's a matter of using common sense and proper judgment just to make sure that you don't over-process when it comes to some of these approvals. Then the next one that you see is most of the stakeholders, if they start dreading your reporting, then it could be a sign that you are over-processing. Then a meeting which was supposed to take 20 minutes or 30 minutes for updates, it's taking 3 hours because you have so much to update your stakeholders. You document too much. So you also need to tailor based on the stakeholder requirements. Remember, stakeholder management is very important. You need to understand even how to communicate their needs, okay? Even the methods or even the technology of communication. If you want to understand more about stakeholder management, I've created a video on stakeholder management. You can watch it on my channel. I'll also leave a link in the description below. So if you find that each time you want to engage your stakeholders, there's a fear that you're going to give them too much information or unnecessary information, it could be one of the signs that you are actually over-processing. So how do you fix that? Make sure you understand the stakeholder needs, especially when you do your stakeholder engagement from the beginning of the project all the way up to the end. Understand their needs in terms of information, understand even timing of their information, okay? Understand even the detail of the information. And in some cases, just using a template to report is very important, but don't be trapped by templates again. Template is just a guideline or a guidance. It's not a cage where you have to get in and you have to do something there. There are certain sections of the template you can even take them out if they do not apply to that particular project. So it's quite important that if you start seeing your stakeholders dreading your reporting, then it could be another sign that probably you are even over-processing, okay? Then the last one that you might see is, if you find yourself saying, just follow this process, this is how things should be done, without clarity, it could be another sign that you're probably over-processing in the project environment. Following a process, it's not an issue. But what is very important is, does it apply to the current project? Is it going to help to achieve the objectives and the goals of that project? So it's quite important that you also make those considerations when it comes to over-processing. These are the main signs of over-processing in a project environment. And I can tell you, even from my experience, I've seen it from my counterparts of project manager when I'm working with my clients, you find that most of them, they are trapped in this overprocessing mentality. Everything that has to be done, they think about what they learned in their certification. Anything that needs to be done, they think about their online course. And then they even come up with a very nice and very long template to say, if ever you want this item to be changed, this is what you are supposed to complete. In some cases, you're even given a number of documents or templates. For one process, you might be given 6 or 7 templates to complete. That is, if the project does not have the Project Management Information System, PMIS. So, always try to avoid overprocessing in a project environment. Make sure you are tailoring your processes, your templates, your documents to meet the project goals, not to satisfy what was said in one of the online courses or in one of the certification processes. That is very, very important. So, in this section of the video, I'm going to take you through some of the matches that you might have, a match between a process and a project. So let's go through them one by one, as you can see on the screen. So the first one is if something that is very macro, say for example, is something that is 2 weeks, you are expected probably to have minimum in terms of project level, and the documentation is 1 page is enough, or even a task list is also enough. Then in terms of meetings, you just have one brief meeting or kickoff meeting, because this is macro, 2 weeks time. Say for example, you want to paint a house, it's going to take you 2 weeks. Why should you have 10 meetings or 20 meetings for that? So one kickoff meeting brief will be enough. Then the second one is if you have small projects, maybe 2 to 6 weeks or 2 to 8 weeks, you might want also to have a very light process level. And a simple charter plus a brief plan is enough. And you can only have weekly stand-up meetings. So that is also applicable. If something is medium, 2 to 6 or to 8 weeks, or to 8 months, 2 to 8 months, you need a standard process level, because that's a bit longer. 2 to 6 months, it's long. Then you also have a full plan plus risk register, and also you can have bi-weekly meeting status reporting. Then you might also have some large projects which might run for more than 6 months. I was involved in one project which went about 4 years. The other one was 5 years. So this is where probably you might need the full project or process level application. And in most cases, you find most of these long projects, they also have a number of stakeholders. And if you want me to create additional videos based on what we have discussed in this video, or maybe there's a concept or idea that is not clear to you, and you need more information about it, you can reach out to me, or you can let me know in the comment section below. Thank you for watching.